The world seemed to pause as King Charles and Prince William, both men worn down by the burdens of royalty, finally came forward. Yet what they offered wasn't a routine public address. It was a painful admission about Princess Catherine's devastating condition, a reality palace advisors had struggled to keep hidden. What truly unfolded behind the sealed doors of Kensington Palace during all those long, silent months. Why would William cast aside every traditional royal rule with what looked like a direct challenge to his own father? Today, we pull back the veil to expose the haunting sequence of events surrounding Catherine's worsening state and the betrayal that simmered within the palace itself. This is not just a tale of illness, but of power struggles, hidden tensions, and the way Catherine, through her quiet resilience, irrevocably altered the monarchy's future. Don't miss a moment hit. Subscribe, drop a like, and comment now to join us as we dive into this extraordinary royal drama. Just moments ago, Buckingham Palace ended its long silence with a statement that immediately redirected global focus toward London. The atmosphere in the briefing room seemed to tighten as King Charles and Prince William stepped forward, steady yet clearly affected. This wasn't a customary royal appearance, but a rare moment when the family disclosed information they could no longer hold back, deeply sensitive news the public had been dreading for weeks. The mood in the room shifted to a quiet seriousness, no grandeur, no formal spectacle, just honesty and respect for those gathered to hear them. The message they shared was concise, yet carried profound significance. The palace stated that Princess Catherine's condition had shown recent changes that required heightened attention. While no medical specifics were revealed, they emphasized that the family was facing a difficult moment and asked the public to recognize their need for privacy. King Charles spoke first, his tone subdued and heavy with emotion, yet carrying a warmth that reflected not a ruler but a father, worried for someone he deeply cares about. Prince William followed, expressing sincere appreciation to the public for the compassion they had shown during this trying period. He offered no unrealistic assurances. Instead, he acknowledged that the family was clinging to hope, while also bracing themselves for whatever the coming days might bring. The phrase, "we remain hopeful, but we must also be ready," reflected the burden of a husband trying to maintain his composure under overwhelming strain. Almost instantly across the globe from Windsor to Kensington, people lit candles and offered prayers wishing strength and calm for the royal family. News networks cut into regular programming to deliver the latest developments. Millions of supportive messages flooded Buckingham Palace, showing the profound sympathy people hold for a woman they have admired for so many years. What touched people everywhere was not just the message itself, but the way the palace chose to share it, calm, genuine, and free of any attempt to create needless panic. Their statement reflected a deep respect for Catherine's personal boundaries and reminded everyone that regardless of position or privilege, every person faces moments of fragility and deserves compassion. In that instant, she wasn't simply a royal figure, but a powerful emblem of endurance. Still, numerous questions remain unanswered. The palace has offered no specifics about her care, stressing only that this is a time when the family requires privacy. To grasp the full picture, we must revisit the early weeks when Princess Catherine first withdrew from public engagements. Initially, many assumed it was just a normal period of rest and recovery, but as the weeks went by with no new photographs, no official appearances, and no updates to her schedule, public concern steadily intensified. The palace announced that Catherine had undergone a planned procedure and was now resting, yet Prince William's schedule began to show noticeable changes, signaling to many that he was navigating a period of emotional strain. Some public engagements were postponed, others adjusted, and each time he appeared, the weight of the situation was apparent. Despite repeated questions from the media, the palace remained measured and cautious, a reflection of the royal family's long-standing practice of safeguarding personal matters. As the quiet period continued, speculation inevitably arose, yet respected news outlets urged the public to refrain from spreading unconfirmed reports. They stressed that especially with health-related matters, patience and respect are crucial. Amid all of this, Prince William's thoughtful and somber demeanor only underscored the immense pressure he was under, navigating his responsibilities as heir to the throne, while also standing by the woman he deeply cares for. Even though he had been groomed for royal duties from an early age, nothing could have truly prepared him for this moment. That image reminded the public that beneath all the ceremonies and titles, they are still a family deserving of empathy, patience, and respect. For William, the role of husband has always taken precedence over that of prince, and it was precisely that devotion that guided him to make a choice, prompting the entire royal family to pause and reflect. In those early days, he still attempted to carry out his royal responsibilities within the strict protocols, offering the customary smiles, nodding through official meetings, and delivering brief statements meant to reassure the public. Yet behind the doors of Adelaide Cottage, private life was becoming increasingly heavy. The partner who had always been by his side throughout every stage of their royal journey was growing frail, while the palace continued to urge him to remain silent, to behave as though nothing was amiss. Isolation gradually began to take its toll on William. Friends noticed he was showing up less and less at social events, while advisors grew anxious as their calls went unanswered. He pulled away even from his closest aides, favoring silence over the usual predictable conversations. And when he did speak, his words were sharp, candid, and increasingly resolute. With each passing day, the tension behind palace walls grew stronger. When he was instructed to continue following the royal image protection script, William made a definitive choice: he would no longer comply. He was no longer safeguarding an institution, he was safeguarding his wife. A short email sent to his father carried just 5 words in the subject line: "She deserves better than this." The note did more than make a request. It underscored the importance of honesty and compassion. When the email surfaced publicly, the reaction was immediate and intense. Stories flooded the media, yet William stood his ground. The public did not turn against him. Instead, they began to question whether information had been overly controlled and whether the truth had been kept hidden for far too long. Meanwhile, advisors proposed releasing carefully staged images of Catherine to calm public concern, but William rejected the idea completely. He would not allow his wife's struggles to become a public relations tool. Instead of taking the safer path, William quietly reached out to a few trusted journalists, not to create scandal, but to steer the story toward honesty and humanity. As Catherine's condition worsened, William's worry deepened. He witnessed the changes vividly, her voice softening, her eyes dimming, her energy fading as if an invisible weight was slowly sapping her strength. His familiar public smile vanished. His eyes grew weary, reflecting the quiet fear of a husband striving to remain strong. And as William's burden grew heavier each day, Catherine became the focus of the nation's concern and compassion. She spoke no words, yet the decline in her health resonated more powerfully than any statement. Every subtle shift in her expression, every gentle falter in her voice, served as a poignant reminder of the importance of caring for one's well-being, regardless of status or position. Her story also became a lesson in honoring privacy and acknowledging the need for calm in every person's life. Amid all the mounting pressure, Charles was the last person anyone expected to take an unorthodox step. A man of tradition, always measured and deliberate, yet the moment he stood beside Catherine's bedside, everything shifted. Witnessing her fragility, her quiet courage, and her subtle fears affected him profoundly. It became impossible for him to continue hiding behind old protocols and familiar ceremonies. Charles left the room wearing a deeply thoughtful expression. His silence that evening spoke more than any words could. At Clarence's house, he convened an extraordinary meeting not to review ceremonies or upcoming events, but to face the reality that people and truth take precedence over long-standing traditions. In that rare moment, it became evident that regardless of title or rank, the most essential qualities are compassion and the willingness to truly listen. The decisions made by each person in this story do more than reflect their duties. They serve as a reminder that honesty and compassion can transform everything. The meeting room was filled with senior aides, advisors, and even Camilla. What was normally a controlled, orderly space grew tense the moment Charles, known for his steady composure, slammed his fist on the table. The room went silent. With resolute determination, he proclaimed that there was no reason to continue hiding the truth, and that the public deserved to know about the quiet struggle a member of their family was enduring. Camilla, long experienced in guiding strategy, tried to reason with him, reminding him of the need for caution and the importance of maintaining the royal family's image of stability. She spoke of public expectations, emphasizing steadiness and responsibility during challenging times. But this time, Charles refused to play the part of a monarch who simply followed protocol. His voice was steady and commanding as he declared that silence was no longer acceptable and that the highest priority now was to honor and respect the person most in need of care and understanding. His words immediately silenced the room. It was one of those rare occasions in his reign when personal feeling took precedence over tradition. The advisors exchanged glances, recognizing they were witnessing a pivotal moment far different from the calm, measured king they were accustomed to. This was no political maneuver. It was an act of genuine compassion, something no media strategy could ever fabricate or hide. In that instant, a new line of division began to emerge within the palace walls. Some aligned with Charles, believing that openness would earn the public's respect. Others fretted over the consequences of defying tradition. Yet all recognized one truth: the mood within the palace had shifted. In the days that followed, something even more surprising occurred. William, long at odds with his father, began to view him in a new light. United by shared fear and concern, father and son gradually started to close the gap that had kept them apart. For the first time in many years, they were more than father and son. They were partners standing together. Side by side, they began crafting an important statement. Not as royals preparing a formal decree, but as two men determined to protect someone they loved. The meetings, which had started off tense, gradually became more focused, with every sentence and every word carefully considered to ensure both clarity and truth. They practiced the speech behind closed doors, not chasing flawless delivery, but fully aware that each word carried weight and could shape the public's reaction. Catherine's story was no longer being shared with restraint, but with honesty and respect. Yet this choice sent shockwaves through the royal household. Advisors who had long held considerable influence grew uneasy, sensing that established protocols were being challenged and that the balance of power was shifting beyond their control. They worried that changing course would set a precedent that revealing too much truth would make events harder to manage. Their deepest concern was the potential loss of the carefully cultivated image the monarchy had maintained for generations. Yet the truth could no longer be kept behind closed doors. The situation became even more complex when it was evident that Catherine had been showing signs of fatigue long before this moment. They were subtle but persistent cues easily overlooked amid her demanding schedule and the immense responsibilities she carried. Routine medical examinations had already hinted that something was amiss, but those warning signs were often overlooked in an environment where stability and composure were always prioritized. Catherine continued to appear in public with her characteristic smile. She attended events, met with communities, and maintained the elegance everyone admired. Yet after each appearance, her fatigue became increasingly apparent. At times, her waning strength forced her to pause even briefly to collect herself before moving on. These moments unfolded quietly, shielded from public view to protect privacy. On multiple occasions, she nearly collapsed during community engagements, but each instance was handled with discretion. Medical staff recommended additional tests to better understand her symptoms, and the more thorough findings sparked genuine concern. They advised immediate rest and early intervention. Yet within the royal household, caution over media coverage and fear of public backlash delayed every decision, postponing crucial action even as the situation became increasingly serious. While advisors continued to debate how best to respond, Catherine's condition began to change more rapidly than anyone had anticipated. She maintained her calm, composed demeanor, but inside she was waging a quiet, relentless struggle. William observed it clearly and repeatedly urged advisors to rethink their approach. But by then, the delays had made the situation far more complex. Beautifully staged images and carefully worded reassurances were prepared to reassure the public, yet behind those polished statements lay a reality that could no longer be concealed. Behind all of this were long, difficult discussions within the royal family about what the right course of action truly was. Some felt the public deserved to know. Others feared that revealing the full truth could trigger uncontrollable consequences. While the monarchy was already under enormous pressure, it was Catherine herself who made the most unexpected move. She chose to speak out on her own terms, not via a palace briefing, not through a carefully orchestrated media plan, but with a simple, heartfelt video recorded in a quiet garden. In those few brief moments, she spoke openly about what she had been experiencing. The video appeared unexpectedly not as part of a planned campaign, but as a personal and deeply brave message. In that instant, the royal family appeared more human and relatable than ever before. And it was precisely that moment that shifted the way many people understood transparency, courage, and the profound importance of truth. There were no ceremonial fanfares, no royal insignias accompanying the video. It was simply her sitting alone in a quiet garden. Her voice was calm and steady, yet the weight behind every word made it impossible to look away. She confirmed what the palace had avoided addressing. For weeks, she had undergone major surgery, and the findings revealed a serious health issue requiring long-term care. She avoided complicated medical language, speaking instead plainly and directly, as someone recounting her own personal journey. If you feel her bravery and honesty truly move you, drop a 1 in the comments. If you're still not fully convinced, leave a 0. Watch the full video, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel so we can continue bringing you powerful and heartfelt stories. Her eyes, the pauses between her sentences, every deliberate breath carried a quiet resolve. She expressed gratitude to everyone who had waited patiently and requested more privacy as she continued her treatment. Yet beneath each word lingered the subtle sense of someone gently letting go of the familiar, soft, restrained, and deeply poignant. There was no spectacle, no pomp, only a stillness that gripped the hearts of all who watched. It was as if she fully understood the weight of the truth, yet could only speak it in a hushed, measured tone. The reaction hit like a tidal wave. Across every social platform, searches and shares surged so rapidly that some systems nearly buckled. Messages of support and hashtags celebrating her courage spread across continents. News anchors grew visibly emotional as they read her words live on air. Outside royal residences, candles burned through the night, tiny lights carrying silent prayers. Messages poured in from students, ordinary citizens, and national leaders alike, all directed toward her. Amid that wave of emotion, the moment that left the nation utterly silent was the image of Prince William, her husband. Reports indicated he had not been informed of the exact timing of the video's release. Just a few hours later, while attending a school event, a child asked the question on everyone's mind. "How is she doing, sir?" And there in front of the classroom, William's head dropped. His expression fell. He turned away, but not quickly enough to conceal the redness in his eyes. For the first time in his public life, the strong, composed prince broke down in tears without attempting to hide them. The press saw everything, yet this time they chose not to broadcast it. Even the media recognized that this was no longer a royal performance. It was the genuine pain of a family. She had done something unprecedented. She stripped away the shining armor the monarchy had always displayed and replaced it with the raw honesty of a person confronting the greatest challenge of her life, and that honesty did not diminish the royal image. It made the entire institution feel more human. Her vulnerability was not a weakness, it became a kind of strength the monarchy had long sought to show, but never fully realized. The aura of mystery that had built up over centuries was broken in just over a minute. Yet this crack caused no harm. Instead, it brought a sense of relief, a royal family unafraid to face pain, unafraid to meet the truth with courage. Not through titles or crowns, but through honesty, clarity, and quiet bravery. Yet while the world turned toward her with love and hope, a new struggle quietly began to unfold within those ancient walls. A silent but potent battle. Who would step into the role if she could not resume her duties? While ordinary people lit candles and prayed for her recovery, others inside the palace began plotting quietly. The royal residence was no longer merely a place of concern. It was slowly transforming into an arena of power. No one dared speak the word replacement. In the royal family, that word is forbidden. Yet hints began to appear in quietly postponed meetings, in roles subtly reshuffled, in long-held positions suddenly shifting in ways once thought impossible. A difficult truth crept into every private discussion: what would happen if she could not return? And it was within that uncertain space that power started to move. Not loudly, not openly, but unmistakably. Everyone felt the shift spreading through the palace corridors, quiet yet undeniable. Members of Camilla's inner circle, long skilled at working behind the scenes, quickly recognized an emerging opportunity. They began quietly discussing the potential for Camilla to expand her public influence once again. Not openly, not aggressively, but under the guise of preserving stability. They considered her taking on certain ceremonial duties, overseeing symbolic events, and stepping in whenever circumstances required. The language they used was always careful and calculated, yet their intentions were never entirely hidden. Everything was presented as a necessary duty rather than personal ambition. Those closest to Eleanor, the princess undergoing treatment, noticed this immediately. Princess Anne of this imagined royal world was not deceived. Sophie wasn't either. They were women who had long carried the weight of royal responsibilities themselves, and their loyalty was to truth, not political games. Whenever conversations turned toward preparing a replacement, they were shut down immediately. In one private meeting, Anne reportedly confronted a senior aide, directly warning that even suggesting someone to take Eleanor's place could destroy the fragile public trust that remained. Sophie joined in stressing that Eleanor's absence was not an empty role to be claimed. It was a time of challenge that deserved nothing but respect. The royal family could endure a period of silence, but they could not endure betrayal masked as protocol. Even so, the behind-the-scenes maneuvering continued. Schedules were quietly reviewed. Certain ceremonial duties were reassigned. Public appearances were adjusted under the guise of preserving continuity. All of it was done discreetly without informing Prince William until he found out. And when he did, anger surged within him like a roaring flame. William made his position unmistakably clear during a tense strategy meeting. There would be no replacement, no temporary stand-in, no carefully staged appearances to fill Eleanor's role. "She is not gone," he said, his voice sharp and resolute. "And she will not be erased from the story." It was more than an objection. It was a barrier he erected with his own hands, a shield to protect the woman he loved, and the woman who had transformed the monarchy's image for an entire generation. But William's words could not halt the tide of suspicion sweeping through the palace. An institution once regarded as a unified whole was now beginning to splinter. Small factions formed, one clinging tightly to tradition, another holding on to the illusion of stability, and a few quietly choosing to stand with Eleanor's humanity. The balance of power once carefully maintained now wavered, shifting with every closed-door meeting. Amid the chaos, trust became the first casualty. Advisors began scrutinizing one another with suspicion. Hints and half-truths, probing questions, and subtle acts of sabotage infiltrated every meeting. Even those with good intentions felt unsettled, uncertain whom to trust, uncertain which side to support. Meanwhile, the public continued lighting candles, praying, and sending messages of encouragement, completely unaware that a silent struggle for power had already taken root behind the palace's ancient walls. And then, just when that fragile hope seemed on the verge of disappearing, Eleanor spoke once more. The world had prepared for the worst. Yet in a moment, both surprising and deeply moving, she returned, not as a royal emblem, but as a strong, resilient woman. Her health had improved in meaningful ways. It was not a complete triumph, but it was the hope everyone had been longing for. Another video appeared. Like the first, it was brief, without ceremony, without embellishment. But this time, even though her face was noticeably thinner, it radiated a quiet, profound calm. She thanked the public in a voice both sincere and unadorned, acknowledging that she felt every wish and every prayer sent her way. Then she shared news no one had dared to hope for. Her health had reached a period of improvement. Her condition was more stable than before, though she described it not as a triumph, but as a hard-won moment of survival. Her smile was warm, Yet it carried a quiet understanding of how fragile the road ahead remained. Experts confirmed that the improvement was encouraging but not a guarantee. It was the first light after a storm, yet not proof that the skies had fully cleared. That caution immediately shaped every decision within the palace. Alistair, relieved but steadfast, continued to protect her. He announced that Eleanor would not resume public duties immediately, not for now, and possibly not for a very long time. Her public appearances would be limited, entirely guided by her own wishes and her health. He refused to allow the royal machinery to drag her back into the ceremonial whirlwind ever again. She had given too much already, and now she needed space to heal on her own terms. Eleanor returned to public life in small, gentle steps. A quiet visit to a hospital ward, a private meeting with a children's care team. No photographers, no speeches, only her soft, authentic presence. The moment that truly ended the silence came when she was seen gently holding her children's hands as they walked across the school courtyard. There was no official engagement, no press entourage, but a parent captured the scene and shared it respectfully. The photo spread like wildfire, not because of its appearance, but because of its meaning. Eleanor had returned. Not flawless, not glowing with royal grandeur, but fully, undeniably present. A mother who had endured a storm yet remained strong enough to keep moving forward alongside her children. That image touched people deeply because they didn't see a princess. They saw a human being strong even in her vulnerability, but whispers never fully vanish. Behind closed doors, a quiet question lingered, unspoken but persistent. What if the worst returns? How would the monarchy prepare for a future that could shift in an instant? The palace understood that this journey had changed everything. Eleanor hadn't just survived. She had transformed the very core of the royal family. What had begun as a crisis had now become a catalyst for change. People no longer saw the royal family as distant symbols, but as real, relatable human beings. Her vulnerability became her strength, and her story, now shared and carried forward by a nation, was far from over. Support for Eleanor poured in from every corner of the globe, but it was never born of pity. It came from true, heartfelt empathy. She revealed something no royal had ever dared to show before: real pain, real uncertainty, and the courage to stand tall despite both. It was that authenticity that made the public see her in a completely new light. She was no longer just a carefully posed image in royal portraits. She was a human being carrying the same vulnerability and the same strength as anyone else. In that very authenticity, Eleanor became greater than any ceremonial role could ever define. She became a symbol for anyone who has ever carried fear in their heart, for families who spent countless nights beside a hospital bed, for parents who faced the impossible yet still nurtured hope day after day. Her charitable work, once focused on child welfare and mental health, now carried a new significance, not because of a title, but because of lived experience. The handwritten letters she sent to families facing similar struggles, the unannounced visits to hospital wards, the quiet words of encouragement never meant for public eyes, all of it created a new kind of story. No longer the image of a princess following protocol, but of a woman transforming her own pain into a path toward compassion. Not for show, but with purpose. Yet behind that strength were private moments of quiet suffering, moments the world would never witness, moments where vulnerability still lived just beneath her courage. During her most uncertain days, Eleanor was said to have written private letters to her 3 children. words she never intended for anyone else to read. The letters were carefully sealed to be opened only if she could not return. It was a mother's last act of protection. Though never officially confirmed, the mere notion of such letters was enough to touch the nation. What she faced was not a vague difficulty. It was a journey marked by fear and unwavering perseverance. She faced it with quiet resolve, but never without a cost. Eleanor was no longer seen merely as a future queen consort. She had become the emotional heart of the royal family not through authority, but through authenticity. A monarchy that once concealed its feelings was now being transformed by her presence. Her voice, once expected to follow tradition, now carried something entirely new, the power of truth. A reminder that silence can protect, but sometimes only the truth can heal. The monarchy began to transform from within. Its structure remained, yet its spirit had shifted. A woman who once teetered on the edge of despair had returned not only with her life, but with renewed purpose. The royal family was now compelled to look back, not to defend itself, but to move forward with a more open heart. Her journey is far from over. But there is one truth the nation has come to recognize. Eleanor didn't just come back. She redefined the royal family through her courage. And in doing so, she saved the very essence of an institution once thought unshakable. Eleanor did not merely survive. She restored the spirit of the monarchy. Through her vulnerability, she found strength, and she compelled the palace to face its deepest fear, the fear of its own fragility. Her return was not just welcome news. It marked a turning point that will forever change how the royal family engages with the public. How do you think Princess Eleanor's honesty and courage will shape the British monarchy in the years ahead? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our upcoming in-depth stories. Thank you for watching.